Hi everyone, today we're gonna introduce Angular. So Angular is a TypeScript-based open source front-end platform that makes it easier to build web, mobile, and desktop applications. So we have a question here: what makes it different from other frameworks? We all know that we mainly have three frameworks for front-end, which are Angular, Vue.js, and React. So Angular is convention over configuration. What that means? So for convention over configuration, it enforces a lot of conventions and provides a structured way of building applications. So for example, it has specific way to organize components, services, and modules. And Angular's use of decorators and overall structure of an Angular application follows strong conventions. In the contrary, if we say about React, it does not enforce a strict constructor, and developers have more flexibility in terms of project organization, and developers make more choices regarding state management. For example, they can choose use Redux or context API, and routing and other aspects, giving a higher degree of configuration freedom. So for React, we call it configuration over convention. So that's the difference. And also for Vue, we also consider it as the configuration over convention. So it does not enforce a strict structure. We will discuss some key features of Angular. The first one we're gonna discuss is TypeScript. So Angular is built using TypeScript, a strongly typed superset of JavaScript. TypeScript brings static typing interfaces and other features to enhance the development experience and catch error earlier. So we will say some keyword here. One is strongly typed and one is static typing. So what are those? So for static typing, the definition is in a statically typed language, variable types are explicitly declared and checked as compile time. So the type of variable is known and enforced by the compiler before the code is executed. And for the strongly typed, is the definition of the strongly typed is in a strongly typed language, the language enforced strict type rules and implicit type conversions are limited. So if we can say on the left side, we can say this is an example of TypeScript. We can say that we have my number as number and my string as string. So TypeScript is strongly typed. And on the right side, we can say this is part of the JavaScript code. So the type is determined at runtime, and for my number and my string, they didn't know when at the beginning, the type of it at the beginning. So for JavaScript, we consider it as a dynamically typed language. And the second point is Angular has component-based architecture. So Angular follows a component-based architecture where UI is built using components. Each component encapsulates a part of the user interface and behavior. So this is a simple example of Angular component. We can say we have a lot of things in this part, and actually for the HTML part, we can create a separate file for this, but since this is just a very simple example, we can write it like this. Okay, so the third point is about data binding. So data binding is a core concept in Angular and allows to define communication between a component and the DOM, making it very easy to define interactive application without worrying about pushing and pulling data. So we're gonna introduce it in three main categories. So the first one is from the component to the DOM. We use the interpolation. Basically, we use two curly braces, and we add a value of property from the component. It looks like this. And also we have property binding. We write like this, and the value is passed from the component to the specified property or sample HTML attribute. And also if we wanted to let it from the dorm to the component, so we can use the event binding when a specific dorm event happens. For example, when we click or change or keep a key down, we can call the specified method in the component. And the most important, which is the third one, is called two-way binding. So two-way data binding, I use like engine model. It looks like this, and two-way data binding allows to have the data flow both ways. So for example, in the below code snippet, both the email DOM input and the component email property are in sync. We're gonna also introduce the dependency injection in Angular. So dependency injection is an important application design pattern in which a class asks for dependencies from external source rather than creating them itself. So Angular comes up with their own dependency injection framework for resolving dependencies. So services or objects that the class need to perform its function. So you can have your own services based on other services throughout your application. So let's check this part of the code. So this is the example, and in this example we have a data service class that provides some data. So in a real world scenario, this could involve fetching data from API, and we have the example component, which is a simple Angular component that displays data. So it has a dependency on the data service, and the dependency is injected throughout the constructor. And the constructor, the private data service is where the dependency injection occurs. So Angular's dependency injection system is responsible for creating an instance of data service and passing it to the constructor when an instance of example component is created. So the data properties in the example component is then assigned the result of calling getData on the injected data service. So by using dependency injections, the components remain independent of how their dependencies are created, making the code more modular and easier to test. So this is what we want to introduce about the Angular dependency injection system.